Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spock Rancher with the weekly comic book roundup. As we covered this week's X-Men books, as well as Avengers titles, and a couple other books as well. It's now time to move on to King in Black tie-ins, as well as this week's miscellaneous Marvel books. So let's get the ball rolling with King in Black, number 4. Where we left off, Thor arrived, and he gave Null what for. Oh boy, did he give him what for! Beat the holy hell out of the King in Black, and then Null basically said, "Huh, you hit pretty good. Here's the thing, though. My sword knows you." Because, well, All Black the Necro Sword does know Thor. And Null basically turned the beating on Thor, but Thor had the Ravens Hugin and Mugen go for help. Namely, the Silver Surfer. Also, Null had managed to take Dylan Brock prisoner. The issue begins within Null's hive mind. Dylan's there. Null is trying to reassure him, but someone is contacting Dylan telepathically. But Null gives Dylan this long spiel about how, sure, they made him to destroy him, but they made Dylan destroy Null, but no, they failed. And, in fact, Null even goes as far as to say that in many ways Dylan is his son. But the voice in Dylan's telepathic contact basically tells him what to do. And we get a very Vader from the end of Empire moment with Null, where he basically said, I'll give you the darkness. Together we'll end this war. Join me, or I'll burn this world to the ground. And Dylan offers up his hand. Null is quite pleased with this until Dylan says, "You killed my dad." And he uses his abilities against Null. And Dylan's telepathically told to reach out through the hive mind. And he's able to free Cyclops, Human Torch, Invisible Woman, Thor, Doctor Strange, Black Cat. Apparently Black Cat with the Asgardian staff kind of failed. And so Strange takes the staff himself, powers himself up. The telepath gets everyone contacts Cyclops, Invisible Woman, Human Torch, and Doctor Strange and Thor. Basically, funnel all the symbiotes into the center of the city. Then Namor, who has arrived on the land with the Black Tide, is told that he's up, and he summons forth a massive tidal wave into New York. Spidey gets out of the way, and then Storm and Thor do their thing, bringing the lightning. To say that Null is mad is putting it lightly. Then Null is contacted by this mysterious telepath. And the telepath then is revealed to be none other than Jean Grey. Who goes into Null's head basically saying, let's see what makes you bleed. And at first it seems as though there's nothing that can actually hurt Null. Then she discovers that there is an opposite to Null. Null is darkness, and where there's darkness, there's also light. And eons ago, Null defeated the light. The light was young, was overwhelmed by the darkness, stretched too thin. And so it became something new. It would choose a single being in all of the universe, bond with them, make them better, make them powerful enough to stand against the dark. But it turns out the God of Light is there at Earth. However, he can't get in because of the symbiote shield that Null erected around the planet. However, the Silver Surfer has arrived, and he takes the energy signature of the God of Light and goes and manages to go through the barrier. And this energy force tells him that tells the Surfer he's not, I'm here for somebody else. And so the Surfer says, go find your warrior. Which is when Reed Richards actually is the one that actually states the truth of it. The God of Light. It's something long-standing in the Marvel Universe. The Enigma Force. Captain Universe. And its chosen warrior is apparently Eddie Brock. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our next book of the week, or book for the video. Miles Morales Spider-Man number 23. The first Miles Morales tie into King in Black. Where we left off, things seem to be going nicely for Miles. Various various things seem to have come to a head, but of course, then Null arrived and there were evacuations, and yeah. And this occurred while Miles was hanging out with his friend Gay. And so Miles basically just, tells Gay, hey, find any other stragglers and get them to safety. Meanwhile, Spidey's got a dragon to deal with. Miles has a dragon to deal with. So, he starts fighting the dragon and, gets carried off, and he starts to realize, oh, this dragon is a symbiote. And so he hits the dragon with a venom blast. It's an actual, legit dragon that's been covered in a symbiote. And as Miles has been in a similar place back in Absolute Carnage, he knows what's up, so, he's got the dragon's back. We get a text from Miss Marvel. 911, Lower East Side, and so Spidey says, hey, Dragon I just saved, could you give me a lift? And the Dragon does so. And Miles starts looking for his friend when nullified Captain Marvel, or Miss Marvel shows up, and yeah, she's messing him up, and she's aware that because she's linked to the hive mind, she's well aware of Miles' previous link to the hive mind. He tries to web her in place, but the symbiote makes holes through itself for the webbing to go through. So Miles hits her with a venom blast. One hell of a venom blast. It begins to work. But she ends up telling him, basically, you got to give me the, hit me with as big a venom blast as you can, and he does, which frees her from the symbiote, but it also knocks out Miles. And Miss Marvel picks him up and reassures him that she's got him, and that's where the issue ends. Which brings us to Savage Avengers number 18, where we left off there. Conan and Deadpool had both been in Rikers Island when Null's invasion hit. Conan had been arrested at the bar with no name. Deadpool had been arrested elsewhere. The two of them, along with another inmate at Rikers by the name of Nightflyer, escaped. As the Nightflyer had enticed Conan with a potential caper. Lots of riches involved. On their way out, they encountered some of Null's forces, and one of them turned out to be none other than the symbiote from the beginning of the Savage Avengers series. And so we begin. That symbiote, Conan is talking with the symbiote in his head and getting a lowdown on the symbiote's past. Explained that the symbiote fell to Earth a millennia ago, and before he could join a suitable host, he was captured and traded, then sold and finally stolen. A merchant uses prison to attract eyes to his wares, claiming it to be an ancient djinn. And one person, once upon a time, offered to buy the djinn, but the merchant said, "Oh, no. It's too valuable to give up. People come to see the beast, and I sell them my other goods." Well, this buyer offers a rather large emerald to the merchant and tells him to enjoy his retirement. This man turned out to be none other than Mekri Ra, Sorcerer Supreme at the time. The same Sorcerer Supreme who was shown to was eaten by Kulan Gath. But Ra showed the symbiote kindness. Didn't want to join with the symbiote, just learn its ways. However, Kulan Gath showed up, killed Mekri Ra, ate him, and then took the symbiote prisoner and tortured it. Until Conan freed the city of Sickles. And so he basically says, the only reason the symbiote still lives is to slay Kulan Gath. When that's done, so is it. But the symbiote explains to Conan that if Conan wields the symbiote, he will never be unarmed. And after all, he can't get his revenge alone. He's too old, broken, and weary. So Conan says, "All right, fine. Yeah, we'll join together." until the deed is done. But the symbiote sword manages to convince the symbiote dragons that the trio are facing to leave. And Conan, Deadpool, and Nightflyer return to the bar with no name. Nightflyer's attorney shows up. Got a few things for Nightflyer. It should be also noted that apparently Nightflyer's attorney is not one for the relationship that Nightflyer and his attorney have is much more than an attorney-client, which Conan has no problem with. He is worried about. He's just concerned about getting paid. So they head out to where they head to their target, which turns out to be none other than the Hellfire Club. So they go in. Deadpool is basically just kind of like, yeah, crashing here, not a good idea. Stealing from this place, not as bad an idea as crashing here, but probably also not a good idea. Even passing by one of the Krakoan gateways. And turns out the money stored at the Hellfire Club now is basically a mutant slush fund. Kind of, rainy day money. However, they did trip an alarm, and Callisto, Bishop, and Iceman come through the gate. Callisto slicing Deadpool's throat to shut him up. Bishop is inadvertently shooting Deadpool a few times. Deadpool kicks Bishop back through the gate before Deadpool gets stabbed in the head by Callisto. And then Conan promptly knocks her out. And Iceman tries his hand at stopping Conan. Turns out, though, Conan's home being, cold and wintry, getting sprayed with snow by Iceman makes him feel at home. Says it warms his heart that in this weak, pathetic world there are still warriors descended from him here. Though Iceman has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And the symbiote has turned itself into a warhammer, which Conan uses to smash Iceman. Shouting at Iceman, "Tell the Frost Giant I'll see him in hell." And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our last King Black time for the week, Planet of the Symbiotes, number 2. Now, as Planet of the Symbiotes is an anthology book, and each stories aren't continued from issue to issue. We'll simply be diving right in. First off, we have American Kaiju. Basically, Todd Zillow, the American Kaiju, Corporal Todd Ziller is narrating and he said, stating that there comes a time in every man's life when he looks back on the things he's done and the choices he's made, and he has to answer for himself one question: am I a monster? But he's in New York fighting off Null's forces as Sandman 1 arrives for when he's, for basically when he's done his duty. But Ziller explains he wanted to be to become to be something of a he wanted power. He wanted purpose. He wanted to manifest a destiny. So he volunteered for a corner-cutting super soldier program. But he's taking on, symbiote dragons and winning, actually. So, I mean, as he should. He's a friggin' kaiju. But, after defeating one, basically his anti-serum gets injected and he reverts back to being Ziller, and Sandman 1 tells him that he did great, and Montreal takes her on her when they get back to base. Next up, we have the story focusing on Hornet. The current Hornet, none other than Hobie Brown, formerly known as the original Prowler. So he's at the Tavern on the Green, and he's pitching an idea. And he's been pointing out he's on the straight and narrow. He ain't doing the Prowler thing no more. However, that's when Null's invasion begins, and so Hobie tells his girl, but kind of gives him, okay, the basics of what's going on. Apparently, also, Venom somehow doesn't stand out to everyone in their memories, because everyone fights Spider-Man. But he suggests that she get to the physical plant, in the basement, fuses, junction boxes. They're not going to want to go down there because they don't like electricity. All the moving targets around, if it's quiet, they won't come looking for her. But, well, Hobie's got to be a hero, and kind of says, let's put a pin in the whole no more Prowler thing. But he does what he can to fight off the symbiotes. Gets knocked into a electronics store by him. Hacks a bunch of Stark phones, and sets up a playlist. For a playlist to be played on all of them at max volume. Mahler's Symphony No. 2 and Rock the Bells, which is able to disrupt the symbiotes a bit, giving him time to escape. Eventually, he makes it home to his apartment on 125th Street. Lets his girlfriend know that he's safe. And basically, kind of hey, I gotta hero up. And he puts on the improved Hornet suit. The Hornet having been an identity used by Spider-Man briefly during the Spider-Man Identity Crisis story arc. It was one of 4 identities that Spider-Man assumed briefly. The 4 identities were then picked up by other like-minded heroes who banded together as the Slingers. And that, however, is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our next book for the week, MODOK Head Games, number 3. Where we left off, Tony Stark had used the Stark Wiz device on MODOK and discovered that these mysterious memories that MODOK is curious about originated in Boca Caliente, where MODOK was born. However, Scientist Supreme Monica Rambeau is still a bit irritated with the fact that MODOK has managed to evade her, and so she hired Gwenpool to bring MODOK to her. And so she begins on Krakoa. Apparently, Gwen's having trouble getting an answer to a question out of Krakoa, and so Skids comes to her and basically, they have a bit of a chat about consistency and character, and let's just say that Gwenpool's got a few things to point out, like how originally Skids was a Madonna pastiche way back in X Factor Volume 1, Number 7. Then she was a Mutant Liberation Front terrorist, New Mutants number 77. Then an undercover SHIELD agent back in Uncanny X-Men 487. And then Gwenpool congratulates her being dusted off and taken out of mutant lowercase L limbo. And as hey, maybe Hickman will put her in a chart. But Sid suggests try asking Krakoa and Krakoan. And, well, yeah. So she asks. And she passes the gate as Cyclops arrives, asking what's going on. And Skids wants to do a friggin' job. Boca Caliente. MODOK is angered at what's become of his birthplace. It's been reclaimed by nature. Lush greens swelling concrete fortresses, macaws nesting in rusted satellite dishes, brilliant flowers growing through drab steel machinery. But he will raise it to the ground to get his answers. But he makes his way through, makes his way into the lab, and it turns out that some of the local wildlife has been MODOK'd as well. And so he fights these creatures off, and Gwenpool, who's watching and narrating what's going on as though she were MODOK, until she finally attacks him. But as they get further in, MODOK discovers that the MODOK experiment is still online and transforming any creature that wanders inside of it. Gwenpool then shows up with a bazooka. But before she can use it, MODOK tosses an A magnet disc at her, and all the MODOK harnesses come tumbling towards her. But she manages to kill him. But she finds out what was going on, and kind of, okay, alright, I messed up. And so she uses the power of, as she'll put it later, positive fandom. And, so she goes back and, undoes things, and, we see another one of MODOK's memories. Him at his son Lou's birthday one year, watching, and the two of them Skyping during the party. But Lou said that his father isn't there, and so he figures that if he makes it. If he hits through his rental now, he should make it back for exactly 1 hour and 23 minutes of uninterrupted celebrating. An 8-hour drive. But she also manages to find out just who, with apparently no help from Forge, because, well, Forge does not appreciate being constantly heckled by Gwenpool. But Gwenpool has managed to find the name of the original coder of MODOK's programming. Simply the founder. So MODOK has no idea who that is. Also, the house that from his mysterious memories is discovered. Address and all, Butterville, Ohio, and so that's where MODOK goes. But before he leaves, he kills off another sloth doc, and Gwenpool calls him on it, and he simply says, being a MODOK is constant excruciating pain, and none should have to suffer it but him. In Ohio, MODOK arrives, and no one seems all that surprised to see him. And he finds the house, and he goes inside, and it's abandoned, and makes his way to the back. And a man in a beekeeper suit tells him, to mind the bees. The species in particular has a sting that George, MODOK's pre-MODOK name, won't soon forget. And it is in fact none other than the founder that MODOK's speaking to. Now we also learn other names that the founder has gone by. AIM Agent 001, Alvin Tarleton, and George Tarleton's father. He welcomes his son home, and that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our next book of the week, our final Marvel book, Marvel number 5. So in our bookend, we left off in the connecting story. Nightmare had basically become cosmic level and was going after some of the embodiments of some of the cosmic embodiments. Eternity, the Living Tribunal, Death, so on and so forth, and forcing Doctor Strange to watch. The first of the handful of stories in the issue is A Day in the Mystical Life of Wong. Wong is monitoring the distress channel, but it has to be monitored at all times. But there's a call on, so he calls Doctor Strange, let him know what's going on, and he's in Milwaukee apparently. But Strange is in Milwaukee, facing off some techno-magical human hybrids that are coming through time portals, and it's just a little crazy at the moment. But he's there with the Avengers. So Wong goes to answer the call and kind of compares. With the help desk, 99% of the time, it's just people in an unfamiliar place where they don't speak the language, and all you need to bring are bribes for the authorities. And say that, after all, what is a spell except saying the right things to the right people, and what are ancient mystical scrolls with a bunch of paperwork? But turns out he's been a tech magnate has found him or has made their way into this particular dimension with his intern. But he's working on some tech, and But well, like, okay, we're getting back. We're heading back to our proper dimension. Um, but yeah, the intern basically she knows one spell really well. It's borrow spell. She was on break, taking a break from her magic school because her loans weren't coming through, and so the internship. Turns out that her boss has found a way to transfer his effort to her. So basically, he's climbing for two. But her boss tries to snag the elder god that seems to be in charge of this particular dimension, putting in a cage spell. But turns out Zigwan, the intern, her cage spells are terrible, and so first Wong gets loose, and the elder god does, and well. So Wong is erasing his memory of the last 5 months. They return to the sanctum. Dude's got no, and Doctor Strange shows up with food for Wong, and Strange explains that the weirdest thing happened. The Avengers were in the middle of fighting these techno magical human hybrids, and they just disappeared. Almost as though someone forgot to invent them. And that is where the story ends. Bring us to our next story, The Best of Us, featuring Nick Fury. Berlin, May of '45. It's basically just, Nick Fury in a bombed out bar in Berlin, drinking, talking to a German, getting increasingly drunker as he drinks, and explaining that, he honestly did think he'd make it through the war. Hell, any of them would. Except for one guy. One guy he thought would make it. Bestes. Of course, I'm about Captain America. Talked about the first time he met Cap and Bucky. And how initially he thought Cap looked, he looked like quite the oddball in his outfit. And if anyone deserved to go home and be have happily ever after the war, it was Cap. He points out that all the German oddballs were monsters. Baron Zemo, Baron Blood, Baron von Strucker, Red Skull, Arnim Zola, a few others. The Allies, a couple guys on fire, the King of Atlantis, a few others. But Cap's dead now. And, and Fury wonders if they'll ever see his like again, Turns out he's talking to a German kid who doesn't speak any English. So, before the kid leaves, Fury tells the kid to scram, and so your mom's probably worried about you in German. But Fury ends up puking on a picture in the rubble of Hitler. And he turns out Fury's got one wish. He's only got one wish, one dream he keeps having. That Hitler would have missed the news of Cap's death, but only just. But Fury raises a bottle to Cap, and toast, and that's where the story ends. Which brings us to our next story, focusing on Wolverine, focusing mostly on Xavier and Cyclops as they watch the Hulk and Wolverine duke it out. Cyclops is actually rather irritated with the fact that Logan seems to know little to nothing about strategy. Based on the fact that he, especially against the Hulk, he seems to always seems to give into his berserker rages. So the fight goes on, and he's told Cyclops about his other fights with the Hulk. Things like his mutant sends his pickup on details the rest of people overlook. For starters, tracking Hulk is effortless for Wolverine. He can detect Hulk's spore within 1,000 yards. He predicts the Hulk will strike with the sound his muscles make when they bunch. But whenever they fight, every time they fight, Logan ends up succumbing to his rage. There's Berserk, Feral, and, well... But, Xavier explains to Cyclops that actually is his strategy. After all, Logan is the height of his power when he's turned into his rage. So by doing so, he is his strategy. Which brings us back to our bookend tale. Nightmare basically saying that he could do what he's doing forever, and maybe he will. Perhaps he'll crush Earth into dust. Strange will watch, and then he'll secure the knowledge that it was because of Strange, Nightmare could do what he did. And that is where the issue ends. And that's going to do it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.